Welcome everybody to a Wolverine Chronicle exclusive interview. And I am so excited to be here with former University of Michigan quarterback, co-host of the Crain and Co sports media show, and a guy that's been known to regularly kick innocent children off of his lawn, David Cohn. What's up, man? How you doing?
Usually I try and kick people off my lawn who are not so innocent, but we'll take that. I'm doing quite well. I really appreciate you having me on, and go Blue.
Man, go Blue. And we appreciate you taking the time. This morning I woke up and did what every self-respecting American should do. I turned on Crain and Co, and I did it just in the nick of time because, to my surprise, you guys were interviewing Michigan legend and Super Bowl champion Chad Henne, who happens to be an old friend of yours. How was that catching up with Chad?
That was fantastic. Chad was like a big brother to me for a long time. As I said on today's show, there was a time when I thought, I was a pretty good quarterback, and then I played with Chad, and he was the best that I ever saw do it. So to watch him be a two-time Super Bowl champion, now have a 15-year NFL career, I'm so happy for all the success that he has had. And, I was pretty torn on the Super Bowl because obviously I played with Chad. Like I said, he was a big brother to me on the Kansas City Chiefs side. But then Brandon Graham, who was like a brother to me as well because he was in my same class, I wanted him to do well. The good thing was both of them already had a Super Bowl ring, so that made it a little bit easier. And hopefully we can catch up with Brandon here next week or the week after. But as for Chad, I'm just so proud of the career that he's had. He's done it at the highest level for a long time. So I would encourage everyone to go check out our interview today with Chad Henne.
Yeah, it was excellent content. And correct me if I'm wrong, you were also in a quarterback room with Nick Sheridan. Is that right?
That's correct. Nick is a very good friend of mine. And again, the same point that I made with Brandon Graham, Nick Sheridan is my age. So as tight-knit of a group as the football locker room already is, that closeness is exacerbated when you're talking about your class, because those guys, you come in together, you spend 4 years together, 5 years together in many cases. And look, your freshman season, it's the job of the older guys, the upperclassmen, to sort of rag you and to get you into shape. And so that forms even a closer brotherhood. So Nick Sheridan was in my class. Brandon Graham was in my class. Obviously, my roommate and our kicker from Michigan, Brian Wright, was my roommate for 4 years. I'm not sure how Brian put up with me for 4 consecutive years as a roommate, but, hats off to him, and I love those guys.
Yeah, Nick's brother, Joe Sheridan, is a really close friend of mine, so it's a small world. That's why I asked
Joe.
about
I
Nick.
love Joe.
Oh, yeah. So, take me back to freshman season. You're throwing the winged helmet on. There's 110,000+ people in the stands, screaming. The Go Blue banner goes up. You walk out of the tunnel that's now named after your former coach, Lloyd Carr.
Yes.
And you take the field for the first time. What was that like?
Well, it's truly a surreal experience. I mean, think about even further back than that, the state championship game my senior year, which was packed out in a college football stadium, Georgia Southern University, my hometown in Statesboro there. That was 17,000 plus, I think is the crowd. Well, you're talking about another 100,000 on top of that. Forget all of the people watching on television. That's just 115 to 117,000 plus people watching you right there in the moment. It is truly incredible. And you're talking about that freshman year, mostly I was standing on the sidelines holding a clipboard trying to help Chad Henne be the best quarterback that he could be and help us win a lot of football games. And that year we made it all the way to number 2 in the country. That was the number 1 versus number 2 year against Ohio. We fell just short. We ended up going to California to play in the Rose Bowl, which was my first time out there in the state of California, and that was a phenomenal experience as well, even though we were matched up with a very tough USC team. But to run out of the Big House, and then my sophomore year being able to actually take my first snap in a game against Notre Dame, my father was in the stands. Russell Crowe gave us the Gladiator pregame speech right before that contest. We won 38-0. Those are some moments that I'll never forget.
Speaking of moments that you'll never forget, I mentioned that the tunnel is now named after your former coach, Lloyd Carr. And I'm not going to pass up an opportunity to ask, do you have any, memorable Lloyd Carr moments or little nuggets that you can share with us about what a legendary Michigan leader?
I have plenty. But in terms of his leadership, I remember one night, it probably was my sophomore year, first year traveling with the team on away games, and he comes into every player's room the night before a game when we're staying at the hotel, and he walks into our room, and I stick out my hand. We're in a cramped little hotel room. He's walking by. I stick out my hand to shake his hand and say goodnight, and he looks at me and he just walks right past my teammate on the other bed. And I thought, man, what did I do to Coach Carr? Well, he doubles back and he looks at me and he says, "Never shake a man's hand when you're sitting down." And so, quickly you understand, even in a cramped hotel room, stand up, shake Coach Carr's hand, tell him good night. And he was truly, a father figure to not only me, but to that entire team. And you see a lot of different type of coaches, right? You have some CEO types like that, some father figure types, some guys who are very, schematically based, on the offensive or defensive side. But I always look at Coach Carr as a leader of men and as a mentor, and I'm so happy that I got to play for him. I mean, the most iconic moment now, that's a very personal moment, but the most iconic moment now for myself as it relates to Coach Carr is most likely his final game, in the Citrus Bowl against Florida. As the water in the Gatorade is being poured on Coach Carr, I was shaking hands with him in that moment. So I get a lot of people every time that clip runs on television reaching out to me. So that was very interesting, and I'm proud to say that I was there for the finality of Coach Carr's career.
Hey, I remember that like it was yesterday. What an amazing Michigan moment to be a part of. And you mentioned he was like a father figure to you. Speaking of father figures, it's my understanding that you're the newest member of the Girl Dad Club. Is that correct?
That is true, even though my colleague Matt Walsh here at the Daily Wire has said I should refrain from using the term girl dad. He says you're just a dad. So I guess that's his way of telling me to get off his lawn. But that point aside, yes, I am. My daughter Ava is 3 weeks old today, as a matter of fact, and I have an 18-month-old son as well. So, being present for my wife to give birth to both of my children, and, just again here 3 weeks ago, it was nothing short of a miracle. She's amazing, and I'm just so fortunate, and we're blessed as a family.
Well, you just gain so much respect for women when you see what they go through with the pregnancy and the labor, yes. And then you have a daughter. And so my daughter's about to turn 1, my daughter Hudson. That's why I ask. And, it's kind of a good segue to something that you guys on Crain and Co have really been talking about and shedding some light on recently. There's a story that's been making headlines. Leah Thomas is a swimmer that's been competing nationally in college swimming, formerly known as Will Thomas, still a biological man, is my understanding, shattering records, winning national championships, standing on the podium as a trans individual. Now, let me be the first to say, before I even ask you this question, everybody should be respected. And I think that you would agree with me on that even trans individuals need to be respected.
Absolutely.
But allowing a biological man to compete in women's sports, it feels like we've gone a little bit too far, doesn't it?
Well, when you talk about the respect factor, which I'm glad you brought up, that's one of the good things about living your life the right way. And I feel like I have a large enough sample size now in my life with having, executed a lot of different endeavors like you're talking about, playing college football now on a national sports show and a lot of things in between, which included running a video production company and playing music. I have hired and employed transgender individuals in my past because they had a skill set that I needed. And so I 100% agree with you. No one is advocating, at least no one that we are having direct communication with has ever advocated for any persecutory actions against anyone for their personal beliefs like that. But yes, a hard line needs to be drawn in the sand. We are talking about saving women's sports. We do not need men standing on podiums and hoisting trophies that are designed for women athletes. And to take that a step further, we absolutely do not need men in locker rooms with our daughters and our sisters. And to me, the issue is as easy as don't push your grandmother down in the street. So to us here at Crain and Company and at the Daily Wire, it is not a controversial issue. This is just a truth and a reality. It seems like there are other factions of our population that want to make it controversial. Senator Tommy Tuberville came on our show this week, and I thought he phrased it quite well. He said 10% of the population is holding the other 90% hostage. And I think that must stop. And again, just to sandwich it from your point at the beginning, as long as we can attack this issue in a respectful way and understand that there is no persecutory or discriminatory actions that must be taken against these individuals, then I think that most Americans are on our side here. And this is an issue that we can push back on, and we can hold the NCAA and we can hold the university system writ large accountable for these egregious actions.
I couldn't agree more. It was just gut-wrenching when y'all were interviewing that young swimmer the other day. I'm sorry, her name escapes me.
Yeah, and I would like for her to be at the forefront of this. So her name is Riley Gaines, and I would
Riley Gaines.
Riley Gaines. She was a swimmer at the University of Kentucky, one of the fastest females to get into a swimming pool. And I would encourage everyone to follow along with her journey. And I just, she sat right here in this studio and she shared, some facets of that situation with us that just absolutely shocked us. Even to the point where she defied the odds and tied Leah Thomas, and the trophy was still not awarded to her. And to me, that's unacceptable. And that's clearly not, that is not just some random action from a rogue representative in the moment. That is indicative of a philosophy that the NCAA has and some of our longest standing institutions have. So everyone, please go listen to Riley Gaines' story because it's fantastic. And she is a very brave and courageous individual.
Yeah, it really is. And when you guys were talking and she shared that this biological male, now trans individual, Leah Thomas, was actually undressing in the locker room with all of these women. And a lot of these women have sexual trauma. They may have mental health issues associated with men. And for young college athletes to be exposed to that, I agree. It's an issue. And thank you guys for shedding light on it, because quite frankly, the media shies away from this topic, and it does feel calculated, like there's an agenda. And so the more that we can talk about this openly, respectfully, I think America really appreciates that.
Well, thank you for your support, because that means a lot too. And like I said, while for me personally and to us on this show and the Daily Wire as a company, this issue is not controversial, just as it wasn't for almost every single person alive merely 10 years ago or when I was in college wearing the maize and blue. Well, it's not controversial for us. There are a lot of people who are being held hostage and not allowed to speak up and say what they truly feel because, hey, just like you just mentioned, kids, a lot of people need to put food on the table, and they are working for companies that are using silencing tactics against them. So when you reach out and you support what we're doing, it really means a lot, and it proves to us that this is a fight we can win.
So let's go ahead and transition to sports, because that's what you and I would prefer to be talking about, I'm sure. Before you get going today, I got to ask, any bold predictions for the 2023 Michigan Wolverine football team?
National champions or bust, Michael. That's what it has to be at this point.
JJ for Heisman, Natty, right? Like there's no other way, right? Anything short of that would be a disappointment.
Oh man, I went back and forth. I had several different leaders on the Heisman, on my Heisman Trophy board throughout the season, including CJ Stroud up there near the top for much of the season. Even though it's tough to give a guy a Heisman Trophy when he doesn't have as good of a season as he had the year prior. Which I think you could say for C.J. Stroud. Now, obviously, what he did against the University of Georgia after the trophy was presented was nothing short of amazing. But I say all that to say Blake Corum had made his way to the very top, not just the top 5, but the very top of my list right there before his injury. And I still thought he had a shot to win the award. So undoubtedly, he should have been in New York. But That is what it is. We returned J.J. McCarthy, and I think that this will certainly be Jim Harbaugh's best opportunity to move forward and to win a national championship. Now, when Jim Harbaugh was on the hot seat there following the COVID year, what I'm most proud of is that Coach Harbaugh embraced that. He said, the job I've done hasn't been good enough. It's not good enough not to meet my biggest rival. It's not good enough to have a losing record against my next biggest rival. It's not good enough to not have made the college football playoff and not to have won the Big Ten. So he embraced that. They went to an incentive-based contract, right? And then all of a sudden he makes the college football playoff and wins the Big Ten back-to-back seasons. It is truly incredible. I'm so proud of what this team was able to accomplish with the 13 wins this past year. We got to sit down with Ronnie Bell when he was at the Senior Bowl. I believe it was a week before last, and he said some great things about Coach Harbaugh. So now I think it's time, very similar to the way the University of Georgia couldn't get over that Alabama hump and break through, and finally they did after they had sort of gotten there and knocked on the door for a bit. Well, now Jim Harbaugh has proven he can beat his biggest rival. He's done it back-to-back. He can win the Big Ten. He can make the college football playoff. And now you're looking at a great opportunity where Georgia does not return a starting quarterback. Alabama does not return a starting quarterback. Ohio does not return their starting quarterback. So to me, I think the expectation needs to be national champions, and the University of Michigan should never shy away from that. You wanted to know about Coach Carr earlier? Well, I'll tell you, as I sat there in Schembechler Hall as a freshman, none of us were afraid to say, even me as an 18-year-old, that our goal for the season is to win the national title. So I hope this team feels the same as we head into the fall.
You got me ready to run through a brick wall, and it's still the off season. You guys are doing great work on Crain and Company. Anybody listening or watching this interview, definitely go check those guys out. It's just must-see content. But is there anything else you're working on that people should know about?
We're working on a lot of stuff, yes, but the biggest way that people can support us is tune into our daily show at 7:30 to 9 a.m. Eastern, 90 minutes every day. Obviously, you can become a member at dailywire.com. All access member will get you an extra bonus hour every single week with us at Crain and Company, and we'll give you access to all of the articles and the behind the scenes stuff that we're doing. So please check us out there, and obviously on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and the like. I'm at David Adam Cohn, which today was a big moment for me. I have to say, 5 minutes before I came on here, World Series champion David Cohn followed me on Twitter. And as someone for 35 years who has had to listen every time I introduce myself to people say, oh, David Cohn, like the baseball pitcher. I mean, pretty much to the point where I've had to introduce myself as David Cohn, not the pitcher. For him to not only acknowledge my existence, but pretty much prove that the sports world is big enough to have two David Cohns, I think we're borderline best friends at this point.
Well, congratulations on earning your place in the David Cohn sports world. Let's circle back football season and talk a little bit, and hopefully we'll be undefeated and on our way to a natty. Thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it, and go Blue.
Go Blue.